Hello everybody, welcome to my channel.
Mae West was one of the most iconic, controversial, and pioneering figures in American entertainment history. Known for her sharp wit, sexual confidence, and sultry persona, she helped redefine female sexuality in the 20th century and pushed the boundaries of what was acceptable on stage and screen. Early life and stage career. Mae West was born Mary Jane West on August 17, 1893, in Brooklyn, New York. Raised in a working-class family, she showed a flair for performance at a young age. By age 14, she was performing in vaudeville shows, quickly earning a reputation for her bold, flirtatious style. In the 1920s, she became a sensation on Broadway with plays she wrote and starred in herself. Her 1926 play Sex was so provocative that it led to her arrest on charges of corrupting the morals of youth. She served 8 days in jail, which only boosted her fame. Hollywood stardom. Mae West transitioned to film in the early 1930s, a move that coincided with the advent of talkies. Her distinctive voice, double entendres, and unapologetic sexuality made her a massive box office draw. Her first major film, She Done Him Wrong, 1933, co-starring a young Cary Grant, was a huge success and earned an Oscar nomination. That same year, she followed it with I'm No Angel, further solidifying her status as Paramount Pictures' top star. Famous for lines like, "Is that a gun in your pocket?" or "Are you just happy to see me?" West's one-liners became legendary. Her persona, a mix of camp, confidence, and cabaret, was unlike anything seen before in mainstream American cinema. Censorship and the Hays Code. Mae West's films were a direct challenge to the moral standards of the time. Her work helped prompt stricter enforcement of the Hays Code, a set of industry guidelines for self-censorship in Hollywood. By the late 1930s, her screen time was curtailed, and studios were pressured to tone down her suggestive humor. Though her film roles declined due to censorship, her influence never waned. Later career and legacy. West continued to perform in nightclubs, write plays, and make occasional film appearances into the 1950s and beyond. Her 1970 film Myra Breckenridge, though critically panned, introduced her to a new generation. She remained a cultural icon until her death on November 22, 1980, at the age of 87. Cultural impact. Mae West wasn't just a comedienne or a sex symbol, she was a revolutionary. She wrote her own material, controlled her image, and broke ground in portraying women as independent, sexually empowered, and unafraid of their desires. Her influence can be seen in later generations of female entertainers from Madonna to Lady Gaga, and her lines and likeness have been quoted and parodied endlessly. In many ways, Mae West anticipated the feminist conversations of the late 20th century by living them decades earlier. Mae West, a deeper portrait commanding the stage, Sex, and the Making of a Legend. In 1926, Mae West did something virtually unheard of for a woman at the time. She wrote, produced, and starred in her own Broadway play titled Sex. The show was a smash with audiences but scandalized authorities. It ran for months until the New York City Police Department raided the theater. West was arrested and sentenced to 10 days in jail for moral indecency. Her response? She wore silk lingerie under her prison clothes and used the experience to further promote her brand. This savvy move turned West into a legend overnight and proved her ability to turn controversy into cultural capital. She later joked, "I believe in censorship. I made a fortune out of it." The woman behind the persona. Though West played the ultimate seductress on stage and screen, her personal life was surprisingly private and controlled. She never drank or smoked and often worked late into the night perfecting her scripts. She was rumored to have affairs with many men but married only once, secretly and very briefly, to fellow vaudevillian Frank Wallace, a marriage she long denied. Mae West kept her real emotions guarded. But her wit was razor sharp and her mind famously independent. She said, "I never loved another person the way I loved myself." Far from vanity. This was West's declaration of self-worth, a radical idea for women in her time. Hollywood, power, and the art of control. When West arrived in Hollywood at nearly 40, a time when most actresses were already considered over the hill, she demanded total creative control. She rewrote her own scripts and refused to compromise her style. Her sexual double entendres were artfully crafted, often hiding sharp social commentary beneath body humor. Her characters were never victims or vamps, they were in charge. They seduced, yes, but on their own terms. In a male-dominated studio system, this made her not just unique but subversive. Battles with censorship. Mae West's screen career declined sharply after the Hays Code began to be strictly enforced in 1934. Her 1937 film Every Day's a Holiday was her last big project for over a decade. Still, she found other ways to entertain and provoke, performing live shows, making radio appearances, though she was banned from NBC for a notorious Adam and Eve sketch, and later returning to film in the 1970s. Despite the suppression, her earlier work continued to thrive in revival screenings and midnight showings. For those looking for where modern sexual satire began, the trail leads directly to West. Later life and the cult of Mae. Even into her 80s, Mae West lived as a symbol of sexual empowerment. She surrounded herself with bodybuilders, lived in lavish Hollywood homes, and wore figure-hugging gowns. She made Myra Breckinridge, 1970, and Sextet, 1978, both camp classics. Though neither was a critical success, they solidified her place in pop culture and LGBTQ+ history. Drag queens adored her, feminists debated her, fans celebrated her. In 1999, the American Film Institute named her 15th on its list of greatest female screen legends. Quotes that define her. West's quotes are as famous as her films. A few timeless gems: "When I'm good, I'm very good, but when I'm bad, I'm better. Too much of a good thing can be wonderful. I used to be Snow White, but I drifted." Each line was more than a laugh. It was a wink at the constraints women lived under. Legacy. Mae West didn't just entertain, she liberated. Before Madonna, before Marilyn Monroe, before Beyoncé, Mae West claimed her own narrative, her own body, her own voice. She was a proto-feminist icon, a queer icon, and a pop culture rebel long before those labels existed. Her boldness helped push America out of the Victorian hangover and into the modern era of sexuality, gender politics, and personal freedom. Mae West and LGBTQ+ culture. Mae West had a profound and early connection to the LGBTQ+ community, long before it was widely accepted in American society. Champion of the outcasts in the 1920s and 30s, West surrounded herself with gay men, drag performers, and gender non-conforming artists. She often employed them in her shows, both on stage and off. Her 1927 play The Drag, centered around homosexuality and drag culture, was one of the first theatrical works to address gay themes directly. It was banned before reaching Broadway, but its impact echoed for decades. West herself said, "I believe in the right of people to live their lives the way they want to live them." She never judged or condemned, and her persona, campy and defiant, became a kind of avatar for queer resilience and flamboyance. By the 1960s, drag performers frequently impersonated Mae West in clubs and parades, celebrating her as an enduring icon. Mae West and feminism. Though not overtly political, Mae West embodied many feminist ideals before the women's liberation movement took shape. Ahead of her time, she wrote her own material, at a time when female writers in entertainment were almost non-existent. She refused to be shamed for her sexuality. She consistently portrayed women as powerful, self-sufficient, and intelligent. She made more money than many of her male co-stars and controlled her contracts, often demanding creative authority. In a sense, she lived a form of radical self-ownership. West didn't conform to typical notions of femininity, she reinvented them. Though some second-wave feminists in the 1970s viewed her with skepticism due to her overt sexuality and exaggerated femininity, others reclaimed her as a subversive heroine, a woman who dared to define herself outside of male control. Mae West in pop culture. West's influence is everywhere, even long after her death in 1980. Influences and tributes Madonna, Lady Gaga, Bette Midler, and Divine have all borrowed from her style, wit, and persona. The inflatable life vest used in World War II was nicknamed the Mae West due to its exaggerated shape. Salvador Dali created the famous Mae West Lips sofa, 1937, turning her lips into surrealist furniture. She was portrayed or parodied in The Simpsons, Saturday Night Live, and countless drag performances. Her unique speech pattern and suggestive walk became cultural shorthand for confidence, mischief, and danger wrapped in glamour. Timeline of major works and events. Here's a quick look at some key moments in Mae West's career. Year event, work 1893, born in Brooklyn, New York 1907, begins performing in vaudeville at age 14. 1926, writes and stars in Sex on Broadway. Arrested for indecency, 1932, makes Hollywood debut in Night After Night. 1933, stars in She Done Him Wrong, with Cary Grant. Nominated for Best Picture. 1933, I'm No Angel becomes one of the year's top-grossing films. 1934, Hays Code Enforcement begins, restricts her films. 1937, stars in Every Day's a Holiday, one of her last pre-retirement films. 1950s to 60s, performs in nightclubs, revives popularity among younger audiences. 1970, appears in cult film Myra Breckinridge. 1978, stars in final film Sextet. Age 85. 1980, dies in Los Angeles at 87. Final thoughts. Who was Mae West, really? Mae West was more than just a performer. She was an idea, a force of personality, and a cultural storm in a corset. She proved that a woman could be in charge of her image, her money, and her sexuality, and never apologize for it. She once said, "I made myself platinum, but I was born a blonde." That self-awareness, that playfulness, that power, it's what makes Mae West not only unforgettable, but eternally relevant. Philosophy and worldview. Mae West as a thinker. Mae West didn't see herself as an activist or intellectual in the traditional sense, but she had a deeply personal and revolutionary philosophy. Freedom of expression was her creed. She believed in saying what she wanted, living how she chose, and letting others do the same. Sexuality as power, not shame. She flipped the script. While most women of her era were punished for flaunting sexual confidence, West profited from it and protected it fiercely. Humor as armor. She used jokes to disarm, distract, and dominate. Beneath her comic delivery was a kind of wisdom that dared to challenge hypocrisy and repression. She once said, "Sex is emotion in motion." This wasn't just titillation, it was a way of asserting that sexuality was natural, creative, and nothing to be ashamed of. The style of Mae West. Glamour as a weapon. Mae West's image was meticulously crafted, and decades ahead of her time in how it turned style into a statement. Fashion skin-tight gowns, lavish furs, glittering diamonds. Blonde wigs stacked high, heavy eye makeup, and painted lips. Always walking in a slow, exaggerated sway, an act of seduction and satire rolled into one. Her style wasn't just about looking good, it was a parody of male fantasy and a tool of performance art. She played a version of a sex symbol so exaggerated that it became surreal, theatrical, and feminist by default. Mae West in the battle for control. Though she became rich and famous, her path was not without resistance. Censorship wars. She Done Him Wrong, 1933, was so scandalous that it helped accelerate the full enforcement of the Motion Picture Production Code, Hollywood's moral guidelines that would stifle creative freedom until the 1960s. Radio appearances were often edited or outright banned, notably her 1937 performance on The Edgar Bergen Show, where she played Eve in the Garden of Eden with outrageous innuendos. Religious groups, women's organizations, and press critics attacked her regularly. Yet she never bent to their will. Instead, she leaned into the notoriety, using it as fuel for her brand. A woman alone in a man's world. Mae West never belonged to a Hollywood clique. She was older than most starlets, more assertive than most leading men, and entirely self-created. She wrote her own screenplays, rare for any actor, male or female. She negotiated her own contracts, and often had clauses that gave her script approval. She resisted studio control and refused to glamorize violence, preferring wit and seduction as her weapons. While men played gangsters, cowboys, or stoic heroes, Mae West played Mae West, a singular role only she could fill. Cultural legacy. The myth of Mae West. Mae West has become more than a name, she's a symbol. Feminists see her as a proto-liber who owned her identity and rejected patriarchy. Queer communities embrace her as an icon of defiance and theatricality. Pop artists and fashion designers reference her silhouette, style, and sound. Writers and scholars study her as an early challenger of gender norms and mass censorship. Her voice, her swagger, her quotes, these are now part of American folklore. She once quipped, "Don't cry for a man who's left you, the next one may fall for your smile." Even in heartbreak, she gave lessons in strength. The eternal flame. Why she still matters in an era where women's sexuality is still politicized, where censorship is still debated, and where self-invention remains one of the few paths to freedom, Mae West feels current. She anticipated debates about gender, expression, and empowerment that we are still having nearly a century later. She didn't just change entertainment. She changed how women could exist inside it. Mae West, The walking contradiction. Mae West was a woman of paradoxes, which is precisely why she was so powerful. She was hyper-feminine, yet entirely self-directed. She was raunchy, yet never vulgar for vulgarity's sake. She was commercially successful, yet constantly battled the system that paid her. She portrayed sex as easy, but her craft was hard-won and fiercely protected. She played dumb blonde characters but was anything but. She was often underestimated because she allowed herself to be underestimated, turning it into a weapon. She once said, "It's not the men in your life that matters, it's the life in your men." That wasn't just a joke. It was strategy. She used humor to navigate power in a society that punished women for being too smart, too sexual, or too independent. Spiritual beliefs and mysticism. Mae West was deeply spiritual in a private, eclectic way. She read about mysticism, psychic phenomena, reincarnation, and universal energy. She claimed to have consulted astrologers and believed in the power of thought and intention. While she rejected organized religion, she embraced what she called the higher forces. "I believe in myself, in my destiny, and in the things you don't always see." This cosmic confidence fueled her sense of immortality. She viewed life, and especially her life, as something scripted beyond the material world. Aging without apology. Mae West did not fear aging, she defied it. At 85, she starred in Sextet, playing a woman desired by a parade of younger men. Most critics mocked her. She didn't care. She kept her makeup, her gowns, her men, and her persona intact until the very end. Plastic surgery rumors swirled, but West refused.
Bye bye. Thanks for watching. Bye.